There is a mysterious power that animates every living thing. A mysterious power that sustains what we call life. We do not know where we come from when we are born. We do not know where we go when we die. But we do know the life we live between the two eternities of being born and having to die. Between these two eternities in our world is our life. For Helen, the mysterious power that animated her life was her God. Some might even call it the love of God. Many of us feel this mysterious power at the center of our unique beings. We experience it through the changes of our individual lives. We see and sense it at work in our lives and the lives of every other living thing. Like the flame that passing from candle to candle, this love of God passes from being to being and from generation to generation. Today we come together within that love. It is good to be together today. We need each other now to face the death of one who was dear to many of us. Our grief is great, but our love is stronger than our grief. Our love for Helen, our love for Helen's family, our love for each other, our love for community, and our love of life. Our offerings today of memories, intention, music, and love will give joy and meaning to our time together. We come together to grieve, but we also come together to celebrate. We come together to remember all that Helen brought to the world and how in so many ways she made this world a better place through her presence. In coming together today, we come to support Helen's family and to lift up Helen's life and to say thank you for the life that was Helen Smallwood. We come together today to celebrate in word and song the life of Helen Smallwood, which was so animated by that love of God. The 4 candles that were lit at the beginning of the service were lit at Helen's request. They were lit at the service for the love of her life, F. And she asked that the 4 candles be lit again today as a representation of the ongoing life of the family embodied in the 4 grandsons. And so, in memory of Helen and her request, we began the service with the lighting of 4 candles. This service will have a lot of music, because that's what Helen wanted. And so we're going to invite you to sing along with the choir at certain hymns and others. There will be another one that in the garden that the choir will sing as an anthem. And so let us join our voices together. Stand as you're able to sing, Open My Eyes. You'll find the words on the insert in your bulletin.
Thank you.
creates us. God who laughs with us and weeps with us. God who walks with us each step of the way, carrying us when our strength fails. We gather today with hearts heavy with grief, and so that we ask that you would move in and around us today. Creator God, Spirit of life, you have shared with us the life of Helen Smallwood, and it is with grateful hearts that we give thanks for all the goodness in her, which now lives and grows in us and others. We grieve, and it's only natural that we mourn our loss. But we also come together today to give you thanks for the person that was Helen Smallwood. All the joy she brought to our lives, the difference she made in the lives of so many. As we now honor Helen's life and say goodbye, we seek to find comfort in our loneliness, allow forgiveness where it may be needed, and gain courage to face the future unafraid. Strengthen us and draw us closer to one another. We hold in our thoughts and prayers Helen's family and all of her friends as they come to terms with life without their loved ones. Enable us to serve and give us that sense of peace and joy that comes from knowing that we are connected in this life and beyond this life. Amen. Catherine.
Just 1 second. Ready. Welcome, everyone, and thank you so much for being here today as we celebrate the big, beautiful life of Helen. And I mean big, beautiful life of Helen. Helen Yvonne Foley, Helen Yvonne Rogers, Helen Yvonne Smallwood. She had many hats. She was a wife, a mom, a nana, a daughter-in-law, a sister, a wonderful sister-in-law, a cousin, a wonderful, wonderful friend. She had so many hats to wear in one lifetime. The list goes on and on. She even wore a red hat. Hers was a life of love. Love of family and friends. Many from Flim Flon were decades-long friendships. I remember a flurry of 50-year anniversaries in about 1999, which is when Mom and Dad's book was made. George and Doris, Ruth and Bill, Toonie and Virginia, Mary and Glenn, Mark and Larry, Mark and Boyd, and love of this Windsor Park United community, which meant everything. When circumstances transported her to the big city of Winnipeg from the north, that northern hospitality came with her, but she was lost. However, in Windsor Park, the door was always open to friends and this community. Love of music. Singing, dancing. When relatives from Ontario arrived, they found themselves doing the chicken dance on the deck. A bunch of us broccoli off the stove. To the sound of, your mama don't dance and your daddy don't rock and roll, woo-hoo! And Mom was right in there. Nobody was hurt. And also the soloists, when we're talking about music. The wonder, the pleasure of singing in the choir. She wrote, this Christmas was pretty hectic. Choir, Christmas music, lots of practice. I also sang at the midnight Christmas Eve service. It was such a beautiful night. The moon was outside, bright on the white snow, and there was hardly a breeze. Ginny and I really enjoyed the candlelight service. It's very calming and relaxing. Even though it's late when we finally get into bed, the city was full of beautiful lights on the trees. She so appreciated Laura over the years, and also all the accompanying people on the piano like Myrna. So, then there was love for the nourishment of the body. Dinner's ready. She fed us all for so many years, a labor of love. The smell of 3-day buns when you were a kid got you out of bed in the morning because you wanted to see the butter melt all over the bun. So good. Cinnamon buns. Shortbread cookies, anyone? Lemon squares, angel food cake with that special icing for my birthday. Turkey dinners where the dressing was the star. Meatballs, scalloped potatoes, meatloaf with mashed potatoes and green corn, coffee cake, the list goes on. Prof difficulty. Baking for church teas, for choir practice, coffee break. Church suppers, endless family dinners. All 5 of us children cook. Dad, however, he always said he just knew where the best restaurant in the world was. Chez Helen. Love of activities. Oh, when you look at one of my mom's old calendars, every day is marked. When she was younger, she figure skated. Then she took up speed skating because she met my dad and that's what he did. In her younger years, she bicycled, she cross-country skied, she swam always. At 92, she was in the pool. What a great gift to all her children, that love of swimming and that comfort in the water. Joyce Muir and Marlene were swimming buddies. Thelma was her red hat mentor. Ginny and Mom went out every week to shop and lunch. She enjoyed MTC, PTE, the Fringe. My brother Scott and her went to the Winnipeg Jazz Orchestra for years. They had season tickets. She loved Stars on Ice annually to see all the skaters. Traveled. Dad and her went on holidays in their pop-up camper. And they traveled to Hawaii, San Francisco, BC, PEI, Nova Scotia. She went to Montreal and Ottawa and Whitehorse. Bonnie and I went every year for over a decade to Florida with her. When planning my own trip to an exotic land one time, she said to me, "What do you want to go there for? You don't know anybody." Travel, for her, was a means to connect with people. Family and friends were the destination. Love of life. Hers was a big, beautiful life because she had a joie de vivre. She was about making things extraordinary. All summer long, she woke me up with, "Swim time!" And I had to run to get into my bathing suit because she was already halfway to the pool. She loved dressing up. mother. We never got to meet our grandmother, but we have pictures of Frida dressed to the nines in black and white pictures, posing like a model. On a cold St. Patrick's Day, I counted 3 sets of green earrings on Mother. She had every piece of green jewelry on, including a green necklace draped over her forehead like she was Cleopatra or Helen of Troy. I would make her put her little notes out with her breakfast, orange juice. Mom, morning. Keep smiling. You'll be fine once this medication is figured out. Keep on trucking and drinking. Love you, Catherine. She was supposed to drink more water, and until she figured out ice cubes, I had to nag her. I wrote her a poem. Flowers drink, you drink, I drink too. We all drink and then we eat and then we pee and poo. We got a lot of joy out of her joy. When I was thinking of things that represented Mom, I noticed these pot holders in the kitchen. I mean, they've been there forever, but they were clean and new, and they had, I noticed when I looked at them closely, they had Smallwood printed on them. I thought, wow, perfect, perfect, perfect. On the display at the table, they went. And that night at home, I needed a pot holder, so I opened the drawer in the kitchen, and guess what I pulled out? Mismatched, a little shaggy around the edges, a little old, the real thing. That was my mom. I don't think she ever forgot the wonder of being loved by her parents, by her father, our father, who fell so madly in love with her, by her children who went out into the world to make their way and then gave her 4 other children, grandchildren. She lived a big, beautiful life because she suffered grief and strife and hardship and terrible struggles and fear and tear and loneliness. But there was so much love, friendship, joy, silliness, and laughter. So much celebration at being in our home for so long. So much joy to be alive. And in the end, there was acceptance and gratitude. What she gave of herself to all of us was the real thing. Mom, Nana, Helen, we love you always. And I ask you to honor her, to please treat yourself kindly, and treat others kindly. Thank you.
You'd like to join us in singing. I was there to hear your morning cry. Stand with your day.
I rejoice the day you were baptized.
So I'm trying to find a piece of scripture suitable for this celebration. I came to one that I have used before, and yet I find it extremely appropriate. John chapter 10, verse 10. I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. And I paired that with Hebrews chapter 10, beginning at verse 24. Let us consider how we may spur one another on towards love and good deeds, not giving up meeting together as some are in the habit of doing, but encouraging one another, and all the more as you see the day approaching. To live an abundant life, what might that truly mean? We have come together today to celebrate and lift up an abundant life, Helen's life. I'm not speaking about the abundance of riches or the abundance of the world understands as abundance what we acquire, but rather I'm speaking of a life that was abundant in those things that really mattered. Because Helen's life was abundant in love, laughter, and care for others. She deeply, deeply loved her family. Emphasis.
That's her grandson.
That's her grandson. Exactly. Paramedic. She deeply loved her family. And there were so many times when Helen spoke about her family, you could tell the deep, deep love and pride that she had for them. And as she spoke, her eyes would always light up. She lived a life that was abundant in giving to others, as there were so many that she invited over for a dip in the pool. I myself was invited over for choir wind-ups, where there was always lots of food and conversation. Some swimming I didn't go in the pool, but lots and lots of laughter. And speaking of laughter, there was abundant laughter in Helen's life. Shortly after I began here at the church, I decided that it would be a good idea to host a Mardi Gras evening instead of the traditional pancake supper before the beginning of Lent. And so we had a Mardi Gras evening and invited members of the congregation to take part. Now, I'll be honest here. My experiences of Helen up to this point were very, very limited. I remember seeing her sitting up in the choir, and she always struck me as a very serious woman. Little did I know. Well, the UCW just had to be in on the evening of fun and offered a skit for all of us who were present. And the skit was about a woman who had rushing around to bake a cake for a bake sale. And as she was rushing, the cake ended up falling in the middle. And so the woman decided that she would cut the middle out of the cake and replace it with foam. And then she would put icing on the cake and beautifully decorate it. The plan was for her to go to the bake sale early, buy her own cake back so that nobody knew. But she was delayed. And by the time she got to the bake sale, that cake had been sold to the most uppity woman in the community. Well, later that evening, there was a tea hosted at the evening of this uppity woman. Well, the woman who baked the cake was invited and was beautifully played by Helen. Never seen her so funny. She went to the tea, and out from the kitchen comes this beautifully decorated cake from the uppity woman who said that she spent all day slaving over a hot stove to bake this beautiful piece of art for the community, for the women. I will always remember the laughter of that evening. I will always remember Helen in that role of the woman baking the cake, rushing around, cutting the middle out of a real cake, stuffing a piece of foam in it, and icing it. Helen brought the gift of abundant laughter, abundant smiles, and abundant love that has impacted my life. And these are memories of Helen that I will never forget. And this is what we are called to do. We are called to live lives that are abundant. We are called to live lives that are abundant in love and care, laughter and joy. We are called to live lives like Helen lived. I have been so blessed in my life to meet people who have taught me what life is really about. And Helen was one of them. Rest well, my beautiful friend. I know that we shall meet again.
going to use your trick, Catherine. Good afternoon. My name is Laura Stidle, and I'm the music director here at Windsor Park United Church. I'm speaking today as someone who knew Helen for over 40 years through the music programs of the church. I first got to know Helen when I joined the senior choir when I was 13 years old. Helen sat in the front row, a place that would be hers throughout her time in the choir. Number 10 music, don't sit in her spot, don't take her music. My impression of her at that time was that she was a strong, confident woman with a beautiful soprano voice. She wanted the choir to sound its best and was willing to put in the work to do her part. And she expected that of everyone else as well. That impression of her never changed. When I became the choir director, very inexperienced at the time, she was always a strong support to me and everyone else in the choir. I'm sure that sometimes she felt that she would choose different music, or she didn't care for a particular song, but no matter what, she would embrace the music and sing her best. In a choir, singers are connected through the shared act of making music, and some leave it at that. But Helen was always interested in people's lives outside of the time the choir loved. For a time, we had a young pianist who was just starting his career. And Helen has followed Will Bonis's music since that time, as he specialized in jazz, and she was a jazz lover. When Myrna joined us at the piano, she and Helen quickly found they were kindred spirits from Flin Flon. Helen was like a choir mom or grandma, both to the choir members and to our children and grandchildren. She was interested in everyone's comings and goings and filled us in on her many activities during the week. Thursday was always aquasizer, I think it was, because she was always exhausted when she got to that. But she didn't give up one or the other, she still did both. She was a gracious hostess, and along with Catherine, we enjoyed many choir wind-ups and pool parties at her home, swimming, singing, laughing, and sharing stories. I always felt privileged to be gifted one of her special boxes of shortbread at Christmas. Along with her valuable contributions to the choir, Helen was also a long-standing member of the UCW. Again, sharing her caring and fun-loving nature with the ladies in her unit, as well as helping out at UCW teas, doing lots of baking, and later being one of the friendly faces selling the boxes for the cookie walk. Helen made many close and long-standing friendships throughout her many years at Windsor Park United. A few years ago, Helen, Ginny, Bob, and Thelma all turned 90 the same year. A proud and feisty bunch, and a milestone we all celebrated. When Helen retired from the choir, she still participated by joining for special events and pop-up choirs as she was able, and continued to offer to host choir parties so she could catch up and stay connected with everyone. She was a very special lady, and it is an honor to pay tribute to her today. Thank you.
I've been asked to share some memories of Helen and the members of UCW and other people from the congregation. So I'm going to start with memories from Warner Frankenberger. And she says, I remember Helen when I was 6 years old and my family lived next door to her parents in a rented basement suite. I can clearly see her hanging diapers of her eldest son Ray on the line next door. She attended all of the Flin Flon lunches held the first Friday of the month at the Viscount Court in Winnipeg for 30 years. She also drove to Flin Flon with us 12 years ago for a reunion. She kept many connections to friends in Flin Flon who still live there. Our last time there, I remember reading some minutes of a UCW meeting in a museum in Flin Flon. Very entertaining. All written by Helen, the secretary. Her brother Bob wrote a book about Flin Flon and she could have written a great one also. Her and I had many adventures driving. So this is Moira, not me, just so you. I am not the best driver, but she was the best passenger. I remember one winter getting stuck on the street by her house and one of her neighbors having to drive my car out of the snow. Helen was unflappable and very supportive of my efforts to get the car out. Now from Carol Belsham. Helen Smallwood was a member of the United Church Women UCW for many years in Unit 2. She was our treasurer, and I'm sure, or for most of the time since she joined in 1977. Helen was always cheerful and pleasant. She was also a cheerful giver of her time and talent. She always volunteered to cook or bake for our AOTS dinners, our cookie walks, or our UCW meetings. She made some great scalloped potatoes, meatballs, and a delicious chocolate sheet cake. She always sent a green lettuce knife for us to cut her cake so that we wouldn't scratch her cookie sheet. She often volunteered to do the devotions at our UCW meetings. They were always inspirational or thought-provoking. We used to have guess who's coming to dinner parties. Helen hosted at least one of these parties. My daughter and family went to one. She served her delicious meatballs. My grandson just loved them and had 2, I remember you saying yesterday, if not more, helpings. She was so pleased that she said she was going to make a batch just for him. How thoughtful. He was sad when she passed away. When we had our annual cookie walks in November, Helen and her daughter Catherine always sat at a decorated Christmas table and collected the monies and handed out the cookie boxes. Helen loved this job and enjoyed meeting all of the people. She was such a gift, being so sociable and personable. And finally, memories from Fran and Nora. I miss you, Helen. All of us have such good memories of you. Just a couple of stories. Once, at a book/rummage sale at the church, my husband Lionel brought an old book off the table over to Helen and said, "Look what I found." It was a $5 bill he had put between the pages. He even did this a second time, but this time saying he found a $10 bill in a different book. Lionel and I then sat down for tea and cookie, but when we looked up at the book table, there was Helen leafing through most of the rest of the books like there was no tomorrow. When she saw us looking at her, she gave Lionel one of those little okay, you got me looks. Helen was a great sport and enjoyed that little sight. Other times we will never forget are the fun times at Camp Wasaga at Clear Lake. Helen was leading the synchronized swim team on the floor of the hall. There's actually a picture there of the synchronized swim team from Windsor Park United Church. What a group that was. So many great fun times with a special person that everyone just adored. A life well lived. Love you, Helen. And you are dearly missed. I invite you to join us in singing in The Bull There Is a Flower. Please stand as you are.
In the cool, sunny
invite you all to stay after the service. There's a small reception in the lobby area, and there are tables set up, and also the picture boards and the picture albums, photo albums, if you want to take a look. And we have time to do that and spend time with the family, sharing stories of Helen and her beautiful life. Usually at this point in the service, I say something like, live one day you hope to be remembered. But what does that really mean? Live so that people have lots of stories to tell about you. Live so that people will count themselves lucky for having known you. Live so that your words and your example will be remembered and you will bring out the best in others. In some ways, I could say, live the way that Helen lived. If you do this, you change the world. You bring kindness, gentleness, love, and care into every encounter. You make people feel special, and they are transformed. You make forgiveness a certainty and allow others to feel whole, and at least one little corner of the world becomes more merciful. We have come together today to celebrate Helen's life. We have come together today to celebrate the love that Helen gave to all of us. Let us continue to share stories, to share memories, to share the love that Helen embodied as we join the family after the service. We have come together today in love. Let us continue to share that love today and every